What's up, YouTube? So it's been a few weeks since the last video, and I've made some progress. However, it doesn't really feel like I've done much, but I really have. So first things first, the rails that support the wood slash bed, I believe there's 6 of them, 6 rails. I wasn't going to mess with them, so I had those blasted and powder coated. They came back this past week. They got powder coated satin black to kind of match everything else. It really didn't matter. You're not going to see any of that stuff once everything's put back together. But yeah, they were really nasty, and I didn't want to use them as they are. And 2, I've been polishing the bed strips. Now, if you go back to the parts breakdown video, if anybody's watched that, I stated at the end of it that I was going to do the bed in black stain with a satin clear, and then gloss black powder coated strips to kind of polish strips, kind of a satin looking black board, and either do polished headed bolts or painted black to match the trim. And I've decided I'm not going to do that because I still intend on using this truck somewhat as a truck. No, I'm not going to be slinging concrete and center blocks out of the thing, but if I need to go get a sheet of plywood or a sheet of sheetrock, or when I go to car shows, I'll have a cooler back there, I have my spare back there. Sometimes I'll have some chairs if I'm going to be sitting around. That stuff, as you're driving, shakes around, it's going to scuff up the powder. And so I decided I didn't want to do black with chrome strips. Not that that would look bad, I just didn't want to do that. I wanted the black on black. So I scrapped the black on black idea. We're going to keep the strips polished. So I spent several days, not all day, but several parts of the day throughout the week, cleaning and polishing those strips to get them, back to, a decent shine if you could. There's some scuffs and scratches in them. Not going to worry about it. Now, I want to show y'all some stuff here. So let's move the camera to where I'm at. Alright guys, what do you think? I think that's what I'm going to do. I already had this sign hanging on the wall, and so it kind of gave me an idea to use it. However, if I do actually use this one, I am going to look online, see if I can find one a little different size maybe. I would like it to fit in between the trim and not set on top of it. Cover the wood completely, but not the trim. So if I do use this one, I'll have to trim it down a little bit. But what I'm thinking is maybe a couple of hinges on the bottom side, kind of tack weld them on the bottom. That way you don't see anything on the top. That way when you air out, the rear end will push up the sign, and it'll kind of sit up at an angle. And then when you air up, it'll flatten back out. So I think that would look kind of cool. I got to figure that part out. Another thing I'll have to deal with now that these boards are cut, let me scoot the sign forward so you get a better idea. So if you look from here all the way back to here, there's nothing supporting that wood. I mean, there's nothing. So if you put any weight, once everything all screwed down, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on that wood, and you could potentially break it, So what I'm going to have to do more than likely is use this bar here and put some kind of spacer. I don't know what kind of spacer I would use. Maybe a 2x4, I don't know. I'll have to figure that part out. Or another thing I could do is use some kind of rail on the bottom side tying into the other boards on the, like I said, on the bottom side to kind of support those 2 boards from not going down. The other 2 right there on the end, they're sitting on top of the cross member of the shock cross member, so I don't have to deal with that part. One thing I have to do is I got a bunch of holes to make. I also got to cut a little notch out on these backboards here, and you see all those holes you got to make over there, and the ones that go around the board here, you got to make all those holes for the fender wells. So I got to do that. I also got to do all the mounting holes because when I ordered this kit, I didn't realize they didn't come with holes. And I wish I'd have known that they do offer, this is from Classic Parts, in case you're wondering, that's where all the wood came from. For an extra $30, they make the holes for you. I didn't know that. I wish that would have been like a recommendation when you put that in the cart or something. So now I have to deal with that. I have to make all those holes with the offset recessed section for the washer. So this is what I've been doing. Luckily, remember on the last videos, these were kind of buried into that one spot. So luckily I have these to use as a template. You're going to need 1.5 inch hole saw, which is what I started with, just kind of messing around to make that. And then there you go. You will, however, once you go down far enough to get this washer to sit flush, then you'll have to chisel all that away, which really wasn't that hard. But then you'll have, you know, it's going to be all rough and textured. You'll have to smooth that out somehow. I used a Dremel with a sanding disc on there, but I believe I'm going to use this and practice with this thing. This is called a Forstner bit, I believe. Got this at Home Depot. It's like $20. Hell, I'd rather pay an extra $10 for the getting the holes made. But anyways, I'm gonna have to do it myself. It's a lot less, you know, pilot tip sticking out versus this, which if you look closely, I mean, you see it gets way down in there. So, and it's kind of a wide bit. I don't know if that's 1/4 inch or what size that is. So I think this is gonna do a lot less of that, and plus it's gonna give me a cleaner cut, because that's a very sharp, smooth radius. So I don't think I'll have to do any of that chiseling and sanding stuff. So I'm gonna practice with this thing before I actually move to the real wood. So as far as the rest of it, I just don't think I'm gonna be filming any of that, guys. I really don't. The next time you see all this wood, it'll probably be stained and cleared and ready to go in the truck. If I run into any issues or anything I can, like a tech tip I can give y'all, then I may stop and show y'all that. But other than that, I'm pretty much gonna just go at it. All right, guys, so I finally got all the holes made for the 2 boards that actually hold the bed down to the frame. All those holes are now made. Very tedious process, but you know, you take your time, you test fit, make sure all your holes are lined up with, you know, make sure the boards are spaced in between like they're supposed to be. I had all the trim in with all the bolts through, and then just moving the cross rails back and forth, making sure everything was perfect. And then once you do all that, you know, you mark your circles on the bottom side of the wood. And I did that several times, and I had several different circles. So once I finally knew it was in spot, I just kind of pushed with the pencil to kind of make a little divot inside the wood. That way I knew exactly where the center was. So it really wasn't that bad. I was a little bit concerned it was going to be kind of hard, you know, especially when you spend, you know, $400 for a wood kit plus shipping. You know, it's cost me over $600 or close to $600. I mean, that's a lot of money to mess up. So you want to make sure when you're doing this, you do it right, or just buy the wood with the holes already made, which I wish I'd have done, but I didn't, and it is what it is. But everything's pretty much lined up. I don't have any issues. No, I didn't mess up on anything, so I'm very happy about that. The only holes I got to make now are all these. They've already been pencil marked. You can kind of see that there. So now I just got to pull everything apart, make all these holes. That shouldn't be as bad as these, but you still got to test fit everything, make sure it's all lined up before you do it. I'm going to go ahead and quickly tell you what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut these boards like I showed you on the old ones earlier in this video. I was going to use that sign right there. However, I still want to use a Route 66 sign. I think that would look cool, but I'm not using that one. What I'm going to do is get a piece of sheet metal, but a thicker gauge, maybe like 16 or 14, somewhere in there, to where it's not too thick but not too thin, and then cut it down to fit to where the edge of the metal is just inside both trims. So that way when it lays down right in between the trim, and then I can rivet or use some machine screws to screw on a sign like that. I have to find one a little bit smaller than that one. I think, I haven't got all the details figured out, but I think that's going to work the best there. And then what's nice about it is when I spot weld the hinges on the bottom side, I'll be spot welding to the actual metal and not the sign, because those signs are pretty thin metal, and they may, even at the lowest setting, it may blow right through. It may blow a hole in your sign. So I think with the sheet metal and then the sign on top of that, I think it's going to look fine. Let me go ahead and show you the bolt kit that I'm using. I got this from Summit Racing. It's made by Marquet. That's the part number of the kit I got. They are out of Oklahoma City, I believe, so everything is made in America. They also make trim. Everything's made in-house, all USA made, so they make trim for this body style, 67 to 72 and 73 through 87. And yes, the 77 model, I believe they just came out with the yellow paint mark, or the yellow gold stripe inside the trim, the 77 only trim. They make that as well. Everything's made in USA, so it's a little pricey, but it's worth the money. So here's, got everything polished. Got your washer kit here. If you're unaware, I will show you. You get two size bolts. This bolt here goes through the trim, so it'll go through the trim like that. The bigger bolts actually go through the fender well, which is your bigger bolt right here, I believe. So the bigger bolts go around your fender well, and I believe down the line of the edge as well. So bigger bolts go around the edges of the fender well and the box. Smaller ones go through the trim. So you're pretty much caught up where I'm at. So now I got to pull all these boards out. Got to make my final measurements on these two boards here before I make my cut. And then we'll be done, and I can start sanding all these boards and staining them, and then clearing them as well. So I wanted to show y'all something. Remember on the compressor thing, I said there wasn't much room in between the wood and the compressor. That's why I had to mount it the way I did. Well, there you go. Maybe a finger's width, something like that, maybe quarter, half inch, probably about a half inch if I was to guesstimate. So that's why I mounted it the way I did. So now you get a better visual of why I did it that way. All right, guys, enough rambling, enough talking. I'm gonna go ahead and get back to work. All right, guys, staining process has started. These are all the shorter boards. Obviously, I've already made the holes. My daughter once said she wants to help me paint, so I saved the tops for these smaller ones for her. So when she gets home from school, she can help me with that. I don't know how long that's gonna last, but we'll see. I had this corner right here actually break on me because I was using a drill bit. I ended up moving to a unit bit it's a small one, narrow one, goes up to ½ inch, and it made those holes perfect to where it wasn't leaving any of those wood chips that drill bits do when you come out the other end. I just did an 1/8 inch pilot hole to get all the holes started, and then I started using that unit bit. Went very fast process. Same thing with the boards over here where the fender well holes go. Did the same process, no issues there. I believe I did it as well on these. Went all the way through. These boards have been stained on both sides, so I did the bottoms yesterday and I did the tops this morning. Tops feel to be pretty much dry. However, on the can, which can be confusing, this is what I'm using here. This is the Minwax. It's ebony, and you will need a pre-stain first. So here's kind of the instructions here. Condition first for the most uniform color. So this is the pre-stain they're referring to. And let's see. You can brush it on or use a rag. I've been using these wipe all paper towels. Don't leave any lint, so they work out great, and then you can just throw them away. let the stain penetrate for about 5 to 15 minutes. I've been waiting 15 minutes to achieve that color, that darker color. Throw away your rags that they described there. Right there, before you apply any top coat or clear, you should wait at least 4 hours. However, it says it dries in 2 hours, so that can be misleading if you're not paying attention. Here's the clear I'm going to be using. Same thing, my men wax. This is the only indoor-outdoor I know they make, and I've used this before, and it works pretty good. They make a clear satin, they make a semi-gloss, and then they make a shiny gloss, clear gloss. They also make it in a rattle can version as well, which I'm debating what I may use. Get a rattle can and maybe do my final top coat, like do 3 or 4 coats with brush on, and to do the final 1 or 2 coats with the rattle can. I haven't decided yet. We'll see how everything lays out with the brush. I highly recommend getting a brand new brush and getting a high quality one. I've used these before. They're really good brushes. I bought this, but I think I'm gonna return it. It's a stain pad, but those paper towels worked out great, so I'm just gonna return that because that was like $10. And then once all the boards are installed, before I install them, I'm gonna straighten all these spots out with a dolly and hammer, get all that kind of flat. And then once I do that, all that stuff, all them areas that are not exposed and rusty, I'm actually gonna use this right here. I've used this before and it works out pretty good. Basically converts rust into a primer, and then after that you can paint it with whatever you want to paint it with, which I'd probably use black. So that's what I'm going to do there. So once all the boards are ready to go, I'm gonna mask all this stuff off here to where I don't get it on the blue paint, and do that, spray that rust stuff on. I still got some of that old seam sealer I got to scrape off there, and then I need to get some seam sealer so that can seal right back off. I've also, real quick, been using this stuff, which I really do like, for nuts and bolts. I've already done one soap. It's called Evapo Rust. You can get this at O'Reilly's and I'm sure other places. This is already the first process, and they cleaned out pretty nice, but there's some spots that still kind of you can see some rusty spots on top of the heads of the bolts. So there's the nuts as well. So I'm gonna let those set overnight, and I'll let those set up. So, all right, guys. Sorry I take too long with talking, but kind of want to get y'all caught up with where I'm at. So the next time you see these boards, hopefully you will be seeing them and being fully cleared, and see how they look. So, all right, guys, there they are. All the boards are finally cleared. There's 4 coats of clear, top and bottom. I brushed all the coats. I did try a rattle can, I think, on these 2 on the bottom side, and I wasted a half a can on 2 boards just to get it good even coverage. So I figured it wasn't worth it to use that, so I ended up just finishing it off with a brush. Everything turned out pretty nice, especially on the shorter boards. It was a lot easier. You're probably wondering what those little wadded up piece of paper towels are. I'm going to give you a little tech tip. First couple of times I was doing the clear, as the brush would go past the hole, the little would puddle up and go through the hole and come out the other end. So if you weren't paying attention and didn't wipe it off, then you'd have that puddle dry, and so you have to scrape it off to remove it. So after a couple of times of dealing with that, I've decided to do this, and it's worked out great. All I would do is just tear a little piece out of a paper towel, kind of countersink it, and then all you got to do, countersink it a little bit. Take a screwdriver, countersink it as low as you can. That way, when you do go over it, some clear gets in there, and then once you're done, then you just push it out before it dries. That way your paper towel don't get stuck in there. That might be a better way to do that, but I did it that way, and I had no issues once I did that, so that turned out great. As far as the longer boards, they didn't turn out as nice as I was hoping they would. Yeah, you can see some kind of puddling pull marks there. The problem with this stuff is, as you're clearing it, this is kind of what I researched and learned like through YouTube and just reading. As you start clearing from one end to another on your piece, this board or whatever you're doing, you start from one end and you work your way to the other. And as you're working down your piece, you need to always come back to the end and pull out all your air bubbles and get any, any puddling that happens from the brush. Well, on the shorter boards, that's no big deal. But on these longer boards, it's a harder process because those are 8 foot. So you got to be fast, especially in the heat, because it's been 90 plus, almost 100 degrees every single day. So, you get a little bit of stuff here and there, little imperfections with the brush. So if you're wanting to do this, and if I ever do boards again, and that's a big if, especially on the clear coat process, I'll get a gun, find out the ratio to reduce it, and I'll spray these. I won't mess with brushing again. It's too hard to do. You gotta have a good talent, you gotta have a good stroke, and I'm not that good at it. They turned out better because the first couple coats were turning out horrible, and I was doing the bottom side first. So once I kind of got an idea of what to do, then it started turning out a lot better. But there's still some imperfections, but I'm just gonna live with it because this, like I said, this ain't no show truck. This is just a driver. I just need some fresh wood, decent look. I don't even know how long this clear coat's gonna last. Of course, the truck's now garage kept. It's not gonna be sitting outside exposed to the extreme heat and cold and rain and sun and all that. So should hold up a little longer than the boards that were in it when I got this truck. So, all right, I've done a lot of rambling throughout this whole video. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop talking. I'm gonna go ahead and start setting up and getting ready to do this final video. Because now that these boards are cleared and have had, I believe they've had 5 days to cure and dry, they're ready to go in. The only thing I have to do is figure out where I'm gonna place all those boards, because they need to be out of the garage, but I don't wanna stack them on top of each other, so I gotta figure all that out. That way I can pull this bed back off, start doing, like I said earlier, with the cleaning that up, working those edges in, and then getting all that masked off so I can spray that rust fix, that spray can I showed y'all earlier. Let that stuff set up and then start assembling this bed. So, and I have one more thing I need to install, and I'm gonna show y'all that on the next video. So, all right guys, it probably wasn't the greatest video I've ever made, but you see where I'm at with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop talking and see you on the next one. All right guys, thanks for watching.